Good evening, everybody. Joe Biden, in his latest campaign pitch for his failing re-election bid, he pleaded, "Elect me," quote unquote, "elect me. I'm in the 20th century." I think he meant 21st. Watch this.
Elect me. I'm in the 20th century, 21st century.
But you might want to elect President Trump if you want a candidate who lives in the 21st century and has shaped much of it, such as President Donald Trump. And if you care about a president who is a nice guy because Trump is, well, somehow too brash for you, you can scratch Biden off your list as well. As his former White House stenographer, Mike McCormick, put it, quote, "When I worked for him, I thought he was harmless, egotistical, buffoonish, and unpresidential, but harmless," he said. Quote, "Now I think of him as an evil criminal who should be impeached and imprisoned," end quote. And the great Victor Davis Hanson, the historian, recently dismantled Joe Biden's unconscionable violations of constitutional norms.
More importantly, this is a man who just this week basically told the nation that he's going to ignore the Supreme Court and find a way to get around the Supreme Court prohibition of unilateral cancellation of student loans. And this is a president right now whose party is in the Senate, and they're violating the Constitution. They've been given a writ of impeachment, and they're supposed to schedule a hearing. And Chuck Schumer is so paranoid about this because he's got Democratic senators up in states that they're probably going to lose the election, especially they will lose the election if they do not impeach Mayorkas.
And speaking of unconscionable, the former chief coronavirus czar, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who, with any justice, should be imprisoned. He's been exposed by Senator Rand Paul as a CIA stooge. In point of fact, Fauci visited the CIA numerous times in off-the-books meetings as they coordinated their handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Senator Paul said he was, quote, "salivating at a possible Trump presidency so that he could continue his investigation of Dr. Fauci to conclusion, which means to jail." And that comes amid a new report that Fauci's gain-of-function cutout EcoHealth Alliance, which partnered with the Wuhan laboratory on what looks to be an engineered coronavirus, had made the rounds in Washington, D.C. to perform that risky, illegal research, pitching it to 15 federal agencies that ultimately turned him down until they found that Dr. Fauci, none of them said anything about it to anyone, even though he was clearly in violation of the law. At the same time, we have FBI Director Christopher Wray. He's up on Capitol Hill Wednesday pretending the intelligence community gives a darn about national security, fear-mongering about elevated risks to public safety now, and of course, begging for more money from Congress. The FBI should probably be defunded at this point, don't you think? I think strongly that. And we need to figure out just what the heck is going on at Quantico. This is the same FBI director who has pretended to care about the threat posed to America by the CCP, Communist China, while doing absolutely nothing to sound alarms about 20,000 military-aged Chinese nationals who crossed into our border at the invitation of Joe Biden last year. A prime opportunity for the CCP and the People's Liberation Army to implant their sleeper cells in our communities. We talked about this yesterday on the program. So Director Wray is all talk and no accountability. No wonder Americans can't trust the intelligence community. There's no way that it should be, given broad and sweeping powers like warrantless surveillance, wiretaps. Thankfully, 19 Republicans shot down the efforts by the Marxist Dems and Speaker Mike Johnson and the Rhino establishment Republicans to bring that FISA renewal bill to this floor Wednesday. Unfortunately, a FISA reform bill hasn't been brought up to a vote yet, and the fight must still go on. This is a critical battle because, as President Trump said, FISA is, quote, illegally used against me and many others, adding they spied on my campaign. He's not pleased with the idea with the FBI having any kind of surveillance powers, let's be honest. And by the way, that's a great idea, to strip them of all of this nonsense that they've got under the heading of national security. The FBI needs to go back to something like law enforcement, where they can actually be of some meaningful help. Speaker Johnson, going back to him, continued his track record of being a weak, milquetoast, ineffectual leader, playing Hamlet and defending the FISA reauthorization bill. Johnson also addressed President Trump on the matter, and this is what he had to say, quote, I look forward to talking with him about it. Here's the thing about FISA. He's not wrong. Of course they abuse FISA. The whole Carter Page investigation, that whole fiasco, was built on a false premise, the fake Russian dossier and all the other things he said Wednesday. Quote, but these reforms would actually kill the abuses that allow President Trump's campaign to be spied upon. To the speaker, I would only say this: bull, absolute bull. You don't know what you're talking about. It's one thing to be incompetent and to be uninformed. It's quite another to just be downright foolish. And you, sir, are an outright fool. It's not what the left-wing Brennan Center wants either in Justice, the think tank pointing out in 2022, a year in which the FBI conducted over 200,000 backdoor searches, even the so-called reform bill wouldn't have stopped the FBI from accessing Section 702 data, except in only 2 cases. The prohibition would have not have prevented any of the most egregious abuses of power designed for foreign intelligence. So joining us now to discuss FISA renewal and maybe reform, perhaps outright rejection, is cybersecurity expert, Foundation for Freedom Online Executive Director, Great American, Mike Benz. And Mike, great to have you back with us on the show. I think it's really interesting that thank you for being here. I think it's really interesting that President Trump is the one who had to say, kill the FISA bill before there could even be real resistance, strong resistance within the House of Representatives. Your thoughts about where this bill should be? Should it be reformed? Should there be a reform of the whole process, or should perhaps the Justice Department and the DOJ taken just completely out of surveillance? Your thoughts?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that the dismantlement is ideal, but the reforms, the dismantling of the nastiest aspect, I'm not sure how much power there is. Let me take a step back. Mm-hmm. I've been very troubled by Mike Johnson's evolution on this issue.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mike, let me do this. Let me begin again because it's so that it can be full. I don't want you to have to restart just because we're.
Yeah, sure. I know that wasn't very smooth. I was trying to think of the.
Let me ask. Hey, you'd be amazed. I screw up every 1 to 3 years. But anyway, what we'll do is I'll ask the question and try it again. Does that make you more comfortable?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Great. All right, Parker, if I may, I'd like to start again. So, Mike Benz, here's the question. I mean, it's straightforward. I just think that most people don't understand. This is giving the surveillance state more power to surveil, and an agency that has no right to be surveilling American citizens for any reason, as far as I'm concerned. That's the Department of Justice and the FBI without a warrant. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think it was best summed up by Senator Mike Lee when he said FISA equals federal investigators stalking Americans. And that's exactly what it is. This is, the issue is this exact power is the perfect tool to be able to take out your political opposition. Because what FISA does is it exploits the Department of Dirty Tricks power that the U.S. government has, that our national security and foreign policy establishment folks have, to be able to do dirty tricks on foreign governments and foreign citizens that they're prohibited from doing to ourselves. I always think of this as being a sort of thummy war with the use of a foreign predicate to take out a domestic political opponent. There's sort of a thummy war between Democrats and Republicans, or a thummy war between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And that cheating technique you can use in a thummy war, where you get your index finger and you take the person out with this sort of sneak attack that you can't really stop because the index finger is just more dexterous than the thumb. Well, FISA is part of this toolkit of dirty tricks that can be deployed by one side of the thummy war to just take out the opponent, and there's no fighting back because it's so dirty. And it's protected because it's a part of our national security toolkit. And so it's a way of laundering, this kind of infinite spying on the most, sacred private activities that you have, your text messaging with your mother. This is the sort of thing that we're due if we're surveying an asset in Islamabad or something. But this is now being done systematically against any sort of populist opposition in this country, done to Donald Trump and Carter Page and basically everyone associated with the Trump campaign. These people cannot be trusted.
So I don't want to go too far into the weeds on this, but why in the world do we not hear then from the Speaker of the House, Mitch McConnell, the minority leader at least, Schumer, that would be fantasizing, to say this is not going to happen? Why not have this Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, who himself may be compromised, who may be being blackmailed? Why not have him, if he is not, interject into this, that this is wrong? This defiles the Constitution and everything that the American way stands for. We have to stop it, and stop it now. Yeah. Wake up, everybody.
Right. Well, this gets to the great overhanging mystery over all of this, which is what happens to a promising politician whose star is rising, who makes it up into the senior ranks of Republican leadership within the legislature. We've seen systematically that something appears to happen during that evolution where they seem to 180 on all of this, especially when there are any blob touch points to it. The story of Mike Johnson on the FISA issue is one that's frankly pretty bone chilling. And I would like a straight answer either from Speaker Johnson or from anyone around him, whether that be folks who happen to share a committee with him or anyone else in senior leadership, to be able to opine on this. Mike Johnson was vociferously against FISA for years before this. He was campaigning against it. He was kind of the face in many respects of being against FISA. And then right when he becomes speaker and is finally in a position to do something about it, he 180s on the position.
He sells out. Yeah.
I don't believe that that's coming from an ideological perspective. You don't go from, as someone in your mid 50s or whatnot for years being, super against something that's extremely reasonable. And then suddenly, you about face on it the moment you take who.
To your point. To your point, Congressman Andy Biggs has said point blank, and he's served with Mike Johnson for years on the same committees, was with him when they were both voting against anything remotely resembling this unreformed reauthorization. He insisted on broader warrants, as Congressman Biggs says, than these narrow ones that are relatively feeble right now, that are being bandied about as some sort of reform. They're not. They're an accommodation of the deep state and the IC, no question about it, and of course the FBI. But Biggs says point blank, this tells you that the swamp is alive and well and fully in control of this Congress, and that's what we're really facing. I mean, Biggs is straightforward about it. You get the last word here, Mike Pence.
Well, I would love to see Mike Johnson come out and deny it and tell us why. Because part of the thing that concerns me most is we just took out Kevin McCarthy at Speaker for this reason. You know, this idea that, they become cowards. I wonder if it's something bigger than that, because we just had accountability for the last Speaker for not answering to the rest of the chamber. Now, if you get rid of Mike Johnson, what will make the next guy any different if what we're dealing with here is something systematic or perhaps more sinister in terms of what's being threatened against House speakers if they don't play ball?
Can you imagine anything that is not sinister that would explain the conduct of Mike Johnson on the FISA?
The only thing I can think of, the only benign explanation potentially, and it's not benign in the sense that I still disagree with him, but benign in the sense that it would de-sinisterize, so to speak, the situation is if it's a budget negotiation issue. That is, if there's some log roll that FISA represents, that we'll get that it'll be perceived that House Republicans will get some log roll trade on budget from the Democrats in exchange for FISA. That would take it out of the sort of threatening, sort of sinister realm. But if that's the case,
would just be
come out and tell us.
As far as I'm concerned,
right? That would just be right. Everyday corruption.
You know what? And the reality is, neither explanation satisfies me. I want neither corruption nor cowardice, and I certainly do not want the Constitution to be violated by a bunch of hacks in both parties trying to appease the surveillance state. And I know that you and I are of like minds and hearts on that. Mike, thanks for
Mike Johnson could have a weekly. Yes, and Mike Johnson could have a weekly FDR style radio fireside to just tell us. Tell us this. I mean, frankly, why don't we have the same sort of transparency? Trump was doing press conferences basically every day. During his term. Yeah. Why is there so much secrecy at the speaker level?
Be helpful there. I will invite the speaker right now to join us here and I will listen to both his confession and his explanation for the American people. We'll have that fireside chat here on Blue Dobbs Tonight. Mike Benz, thanks so much for being with us. Please come back soon, as always.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks for everything you're doing. And coming up next, we'll have more on the critical FISA reform issue. We'll be talking with Congressman Eli Crane of Arizona. Also, Israel and Iran on the verge of starting what could become full-out war. That's straight ahead. Stay with us.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your My Pillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com.
Welcome back. Marxist Democrats are already seizing on the issue of abortion as their best last-ditch hope to turn around their fading election hopes. In Arizona, the legislature there erupted in chaos over the state Supreme Court's decision to uphold an 1864 law that bans abortion. Democrats in the chamber shouted shame and blood on your hands to Republicans who voted for a recess. Watch this. Well, watching that spectacle in the chamber there, you would think this was some sort of hoorah rally that they were having, and that there weren't serious and profoundly serious issues at stake here. Life itself. According to, by the way, just to put this in some context, according to the National Right to Life, more than 63 million babies have been aborted since the Supreme Court's 1973 Roe versus Wade ruling. We're talking about 63 million abortions. Arizona's Supreme Court ruling now means the state has the strictest abortion laws in the country. But it is a decision of the state legislature and their laws, not the U.S. laws, not the national federal government, but rather precisely the way a federal system is supposed to work. It is the decision of those who live in the state of Arizona and the laws that they create. President Trump was asked about the ruling by reporters yesterday. President Trump gave what I think is a compelling answer, and one that the rest of the Republican Party should be listening to very carefully and be considering, because in this answer is wisdom. Listen.
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people.
President Trump reiterated his stance on the issue earlier this week to prevent the national Marxist media and the Marxist Dems from smearing him on the issue, distorting and carrying out another disinformation campaign against him. President Trump says the Supreme Court has made it clear the states have the right to decide on the issue of abortion, and they only have that right. Well, one of the only issues the Democrats have to run on now is abortion, of course, and now they're in real trouble because this is, for all practical purposes, off the table, the abortion issue. They'll play politics with it. They'll try to run with it. But let's not forget that Arizona has a Democratic governor by the name of Katie Hobbs. And if Democrats want to change the law, that is their purview. That is a matter of volition. They can do so now. They can negotiate with Republicans in the legislature, but they won't. The Democrats don't care about their voters. They care about power, and they will do everything they can to use abortion again as a wedge issue all across the country ahead of the presidential election. So let's turn now to a major victory for the American people. America First House Republicans successfully defeated Speaker Johnson's efforts to reauthorize FISA. Speaker Johnson is a man who is lost, he is compromised, and he is appalling. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is supposed to allow law enforcement agencies to monitor foreign threats. It's used to spy on political opponents of the Marxist Dems, as we have seen with President Trump. It is used for political purposes to shape political outcomes domestically. And that is beyond the meaning and the intent of anyone who ever created FISA. And it should be shut down, in my opinion, right now. Joining us now to talk about FISA, whether its reauthorization is appropriate, as well as the current state of the Republican caucus in Congress, is Arizona Representative Eli Crane. Congressman, as always, great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us and taking the time. Let's start with FISA. You, as a former SEAL, a man committed to the Constitution, to the good and this country's destiny, give us a sense of what your position on FISA.
Well, thanks for having me on, Lou. So I was one of, I think, the 19 Republicans yesterday that voted down the rule on FISA. I'm one of the folks that is highly skeptical of our intelligence agencies and believe that they are becoming more and more weaponized against the American people every single day. I also acknowledge that, the facts of how many times they have abused, FISA to spy on American citizens. I think, some of the numbers are 278,000 times. And they brag about that because that's a decrease from some of the previous years before. The bottom line is, I don't think a lot of Americans trust, this government, our intelligence agencies. And honestly, Lou, nobody's making the argument up here that, FISA isn't at many times used for good things to keep our intel, agencies abreast of what some of our adversaries and terrorists are doing around the world. Our issue is with the backdoor searches and queries of American citizens that often get rolled up into, the process. And that's the problem. I sat in a meeting yesterday with Mike Lee, a meeting that was held by Andy Biggs. It was a bipartisan meeting. Even Rep. Jayapal was there. Along with other Democrats who are very concerned about the reauthorization of FISA in its current form. And some of the examples that Senator Lee brought up were instances in which intelligence and law enforcement individuals used this tool to check on people who were going to lease an apartment from them, or checking on American citizens to see if dad was cheating on mom. And so the bottom line is, Lou, as this government becomes more and more out of control each and every day, I think that there's definitely a massive agenda up here from the conservatives up here in the House to check this process and to make sure that our intel agencies and also our Department of Justice and others know that we're not happy, and currently this is unacceptable. The process that we have, the violation of Americans' Fourth Amendment protections under the Constitution, and we're going to do everything that we can to reform it.
And I applaud you and all who are standing against this. There's no room here for compromise. This is an agency, the FBI, the Department of Justice, that have used their power under FISA and other powers. They've abused every power that I am aware of that they possess to go after President Trump. That's not hyperbole. For 9 years, they politically persecuted this president. They have spied on American citizens. They have spied on their own intelligence agencies in the House of Representatives that are supposed to provide oversight. Whether it be in the Senate, they've spied on them. Whether it's been in the House, they've spied on them. For the Congress of the United States, with a carve-out that would make them at least exempt from those agencies spying on them, the ignorance of this is monumental. How could any person say they're in their right mind and go in and say, yes, I know you've spied on us. I know that you have persecuted a president, a candidate for president, a sitting president, and a former president. And yes, now we're going to give you those powers again. You in the Congress, I believe, have to demonstrate that first, that you're right-minded and understand morality, right and wrong, and actually believe in consequence for those who transgress. This is ignorance beyond belief. This isn't something where the conference comes together and says, what do you think we should trade for here? They've traded away the Constitution of the United States to a bunch of permanent bureaucrats in the intelligence community and the FBI and its National Security Division. It's just, I have to say to you, ignorance. I'm looking here, Congressman, I'm looking at Rand Paul calling for, frankly, Dr. Anthony Fauci's head, talking about his secret trips to the CIA during the pandemic, saying that he was he's salivating at the prospect of a Trump win so that they will have the power to investigate further. It is a rancidly corrupt government, and I believe that its reform begins right now. If the Republican conference doesn't have the guts, the fortitude, the principle to stand up for what America should represent, and this Constitution does represent, I think we will be lost. I think it is on you in this moment, you and your fellow Republicans. Your thoughts?
I don't have a lot of confidence or faith in this conference that we have. Just yesterday, I told you that 19 of us voted to take down the rule, meaning that this reauthorization could not come to the floor. I do think it will end up coming to the floor, but in a conference just after we took down the rule, Lou, leadership was talking about repercussions for those of us that took down the rule. And so that's the world that I live in. I'm not confident in this conference. They tend to, as far as I'm concerned, they lack a complete understanding of situational awareness. They tend to move forward with the idea that our law enforcement agencies, our intel communities, are working honestly, and have the best interests of Americans in mind. And unfortunately, I don't agree with that. I've seen too many times them abuse the powers and authorities that they have. And many of them are trying to make the argument yesterday in a classified briefing up here on Capitol Hill that they're not even violating Americans' Fourth Amendment protections when doing these queries and searches on Americans without getting a warrant. And that's what we really want, Lou. We want them to have to get a warrant if they want to search and query U.S. citizens per the Constitution. That's not asking a lot. And, we haven't, even though they've given us examples of when they've used FISA to stop terrorist attacks, we haven't really seen examples or heard specific examples of times where they couldn't have got a warrant to stop these terrorist attacks. And we do have specific examples of when, these authorities and tools have been utilized to, basically, break the rights of American citizens. And I went through some of those earlier with you.
Congressman Eli Crane, thank you, sir. And thanks for all you do and have done for your country. Up next, Israel and Iran are on the verge of starting a full-on war if they continue at this rate. Iran threatening retaliation for Israeli strikes. Israel is insisting it will defend itself at all costs. Israel means exactly what it is saying. More on that coming up here next. Please join me every day for my podcast, The Great America Show, at LouDobbs.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We're coming right back. Please stay with us.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
And welcome back. Well, the Iranian saber rattling is escalating. I'm not always sure it's Iranian saber rattling. Sometimes I think it's the CIA trying to make you think that the Iranians are rattling their sabers. I don't know which, but I know this. The CIA wants you to know who's in charge, and it is the CIA. Remember last week, 10 days ago, they said there'd be an attack by the Iranians without equivocation, no couching or posturing. The CIA said that the Iranians would be attacking Israel. Well, they were wrong, and they're still wrong. And now we hear the Ayatollah Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, has declared Israel must face consequences for its actions against the Iranian embassy it destroyed in Syria. That would be in retaliation for an April 1st airstrike on its embassy in Syria. So here we go. The ignorance of the Middle East always rises to a certain level before that there is, a conflict, real open conflict. And the evil regime that made a mistake must be punished, said Khomeini. Well, big talk and a lot of nonsense. It must have been April Fool's Day because nothing have the Iranians done but talk big since the airstrike. And I think one of the reasons for that is that they know full well Israel will rip their infrastructure, their refineries, all of their infrastructure in Iran back to the Stone Age if they ever even considered attacking Israel. And I'm sorry, Joe Biden, but that's just the fact. And enough ignorance out of Washington, D.C. Israel has a war to fight here. And we have a responsibility to back up those Israelis, our allies in the Middle East. But here at home, we have security issues as well to worry ourselves about. Should we impeach DHS Secretary Mayorkas just because he turned over 2,000 miles of our southern border to the Mexican drug cartels? I think we should talk about that, don't you? Well, wait a minute. We did talk about it, and he was impeached. But right now, Mayorkas has managed to find the decency, the grace, the elegance, if you will, to confirm exactly what everybody has accused him of and what he has denied through almost 3.5 years in the Biden regime. Mayorkas is indeed, he admits, presiding over a border crisis. Imagine, he actually admitted it now for the first time. He said, quote, "Congresswoman, I do understand the challenges of the border. I certainly don't dance around them, as a matter of fact," Mayorkas said. And he added in an exchange with Congresswoman Ashley Hinson that, quote, "Yes, I would," in response to would he characterize the situation as a border crisis. Well, that's hard to square up with. The border is perfectly secure, but that'll work for someone who is unprincipled as Mayorkas. He does nothing but dance around issues. He does have a rare moment of clarity once in a while when he's facing impeachment in the U.S. Senate. And joining us now to talk about national security is Texas Congressman Troy Nehls. Congressman, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with Mayorkas. How is it that people can avoid becoming physically ill when listening to him?
Well, Lou, thank you for having me. I voted to impeach Mayorkas. He needs to go. I think he has violated his oath to protect the American people with this administration's policies, and he seems to just continue to do everything he can to protect the borders, our Kamala Harris and this administration. But when he said that this is a crisis, what they'll do is maybe he made a slip. He'll say, but we're managing the crisis, folks. There is a border crisis, but we're managing the border crisis. You'll watch him. He'll be on one of the programs, ABC, NBC, MSLSD. He'll say, what I really meant to say is there's a crisis,
Univision.
But we're yeah, that's exactly what he'll say. But you could take these articles over there now. We impeached him. We did our job. You could take them over to the Senate. But quite honestly, I don't think it goes anywhere because, let's be honest with the American people, Chuck Schumer has been in charge of Congress for the past several months.
Well, there's no question about it. Chuck Schumer is also in charge of Israel. I have to say, it's really quite remarkable. Chuck Schumer telling the Israelis to hold elections. Joe Biden telling the Israelis that they have to have a unilateral ceasefire. They have to let Hamas have reinforcements, and on it goes. What in the world is going on in this country that suddenly it is okay to be anti-Semitic on Capitol Hill on 1600 Pennsylvania? It is okay to be anti-Israel and pro-Hamas? What in the world is happening in this country right now? The Marxist Dems have gone out of their minds.
Yeah. I think Joe Biden, he understands he's underwater. He's in trouble. He's trying to find a way to appease both sides. You've got hundreds of Palestinian protesters up here, pro-Hamas people. They're up here in our streets up here, and quite honestly, trying to intimidate members of Congress. And Joe Biden realized that what took place in Michigan with that primary, a lot of people said, you know, I don't know, Joe Biden, you better do something to get Israel to stop, you know, bombing in Gaza and protect the Palestinian people. And he's caught there now in a very difficult situation, but it was self-induced. It was self-induced. If he wouldn't have shown weakness in Afghanistan and everywhere else across the globe, Hamas would have never gone into Israel. They would have never gone into Israel under Donald J. Trump. So he's trying to find a way to play both sides. And now he's trying to appease them by saying, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to build a port. We'll build a port in Gaza and Palestine, provide aid. He's underwater. He's doing a miserable job. He's a failure, and he just demonstrates weakness, and our adversaries take advantage of it.
You know, as you were talking, I was thinking that sounds just exactly the way I would describe your Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's underwater. He's confused. He's unprincipled. He's trying to work both sides. He's trying to find a way out from standing up for principle and for the right thing for the country, the national interest, and the Constitution. And you know what? I have far less empathy for him, frankly, than you might imagine. I have no empathy at all, as a point of fact. This is a man that means to destroy the republic himself. He has joined, locked arms with the Marxist Dems who are tearing this country apart. His perfidy, his corruption is one of the soul, as far as I'm concerned. How can your conference, in good conscience, reauthorize the license for the FBI and the Department of Justice to spy on American citizens?
Well, I don't think he's going to get if it's just up to the Republican conference, it's going nowhere. It would fail. He's going to need to get Democrats to support this thing. I don't know if he's going to just bring it to the House floor for a vote. It'd have to go back to the Rules Committee, or he'll try to do it under suspension, meaning he'll need 2/3 of the House of Representatives to get it done. But he had a difficult day yesterday. We all sat in a Republican conference at 4 o'clock. People were airing their grievances with it, whether it was the Fourth Amendment issue that Warren Davidson brought up, or whether it was Andy Biggs' amendment with the you must require a warrant. So he's in big trouble right now. Today, we're trying to figure out when we will be voting, if we will be voting, if any type of compromise is being made. But I tell you, the FBI cannot be trusted. We've made it very clear, and they have demonstrated to the American people that they cannot be trusted. They have violated all sorts of laws. They went against Carter Page, and I know this is several years ago with the Trump campaign, but the American people need to be reminded what they did to a great American hero, Carter Page, by using FISA, lying on the warrants, spying on him because he was affiliated with the Trump campaign. What Comey said about Donald Trump, this potential of Trump having prostitutes urinate on him in Russia when he was over at the Ritz-Carlton. This was all done 5-6 months before general election. The FBI cannot be trusted. Read the Durham report. They lay it all out there. I will not reauthorize FISA. I can't do it. Can't do it.
Congressman, as usual, you and I conclude in absolute agreement. And thank you for your observations on that 2,000-mile border that Joe Biden turned over to the Mexican drug cartels without protest from the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mr. Mike Turner, speaking of outright fools and knaves. Congressman, thanks so much. Congressman Troy Nehls, speaking of American heroes, thanks for being with us. And Joe Biden is getting decimated with independent voters, black voters, former Biden voters. Morning Joe. Oh, they're having a fit at MSNBC, and that's why we're bringing this to you. Recently, Morning Joe aired a brutal segment in which former Biden voters trashed Biden's handling of the economy. And Joe didn't like that.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
I agree.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right. So that is everybody. Is there anything Joe Biden could do or say between now and the time you vote that would make you feel differently about feeling that his policies would not be as good for your family on the economy? Or have you pretty much decided that Trump's policies would be better for the economy?
I mean, I feel like he doesn't even take accountability for what's at all with what's going on in the economy. Not even accountability. Like, he's in denial that it's happening.
The point is Biden needs to hear the people, because when he's talking about the economy doing stellar, he's talking about the stock market. He's not looking at homelessness or joblessness. He's not, at Andy's point, and thinking about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. And he's gaslighting literally everyone in the process.
And Omar, you voted for Joe Biden last time, right?
Yeah.
Some really important and hard insights for the Biden campaign to hear there. And hearing all that, you might think things are pretty bad for President Biden. That was not good.
Mika not happy. Neither was Joe. And black voters making it clear they aren't too happy either, recently appearing on CNN and flat out saying they refuse to vote for Joe Biden.
None are planning to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
If I were to vote tomorrow, I wouldn't vote, period. Ideally, I would like to vote third party.
I will vote for an independent candidate. I'm considering either voting for Claudia de la Cruz or Cornel West at this point. If there is no substantive policy change when it comes to the genocide in Gaza, then there's not really a discussion for me.
I love that remark, no substantive policy change. I think he needs to go back and look at President Trump's term in office and compare it to the first 3 years of Joe Biden. Those are some pretty important policy changes, and that's why most voters are going for Trump by a huge margin. Only 63% of black voters say they will support Biden this year. That sounds high until you realize it's an all-time low for Democratic presidential candidates since the polling firm Gen Forward started collecting data back in 1999. However, the latest polls show 17% of black voters will vote for former President Donald Trump, more than twice the number in 2020. So if a free and fair election were held today, Biden would be toast. Let's all hope for a free and fair election in November. Let's pray for that. And let's also go to our precincts and our polls to make sure we're there as observers, full participants in the election, and make certain that it's a straight up deal, absolutely secure and with integrity. Before we go to break, MyPillow is excited to announce they're having a huge spring sale, and here are a few examples. One of them is MyPillow 2.0, and get another one absolutely free. These pillows are made with cooling technology. That means the best pillow just got even better, and this just in, 9 brand new colors and styles of their percale bed sheets. They're made with the finest long staple cotton, and now you can save 50% or more. That's as low as $24.98 a set. And for the first time this year, MyPillow's offering My Slippers and Sandals for as low as $25 a pair. So go to MyPillow.com and use promo code Dobbs or call 800-977-9152 to get the MyPillow 2.0, buy one, get one free, or the percale sheets for as low as $24.98, and My Slippers and Sandals for as low as $25 a pair. And for a limited time, when you order $75 or more, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com and use promo code, and this is very important, promo code Dobbs, D-O-B-B-S. Coming up here next, California has turned from a gorgeous paradise to a homeless haven. We'll have the disturbing new report here next. Stay with us for that. We're coming right back.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
And now, turning to the culture war front, British pediatrician Dr. Hilary Cass confirming what you and I perhaps already knew. Children who claim to be transgender are often confused and suffering from other mental health issues. Dr. Cass's landmark study finds children who believe they're transgender disproportionately have mental illnesses that are often connected to trauma and to abuse. They're also commonly on the autism spectrum. There is a word for taking the most vulnerable people in society and sterilizing them, which is what so-called gender-affirming care does. That word is eugenics. And joining us tonight is Camille Kiefel, a young woman who is suing a Catholic hospital in Oregon where she underwent transgender surgery. This comes after the Pope denounced gender ideology as a grave threat to human dignity. Kiefel no longer identifies as transgender, but the ordeal left her scarred mentally and physically. She wants to hold the people who encouraged her to take that path accountable. And she joins us now, and with her is her attorney, Zachary Hostetter. And I want to thank you, Camille and Zachary, for joining us. And Camille, let me turn to you first and foremost. How long ago was it that you went through this ordeal for transgender affirming care?
Yes, so it was August 27th, 2020, when they performed a non-binary top surgery on me, one that has no biological equivalent in nature. And tell us, what hospital was it, and who was in charge of your care? So it was Providence Hospital, and it was Tina Jen who performed the surgery. And so let me ask you this too, because this is something most of us don't understand. It's not well publicized in any way. And the medical profession itself doesn't have a lot of science to back up anything. As a matter of fact, I'm curious about this, and I'll ask you. I get the impression the American Medical Association would just as soon never talk about this, not release any statistics or any science on this issue. There haven't been any public hearings that I'm aware of in the Senate or the House on transgender surgeries. Give us a sense of what your thinking is and what you know to be the facts surrounding it. I'm deeply concerned because, as you're saying, there is very little research on it. In fact, we're seeing that there is a significant amount of detransitioners that are coming out, and this isn't being documented. There are no medical codes for detransition. So what this means is that so if there's somebody who does detransition and they need further medical care, they're not being medically documented by insurance. And so this can be very difficult to understand, like how many individuals are actually detransitioning. It's been very difficult. I run a nonprofit called Detrans Help, and we've tried to reach out to particularly the left because this is where we are seeing this issue. We've reached out to WPATH, who many states use as the standard of care, and many medical institutions use as the standard of care. We've reached out to them addressing our concerns, and they have not responded to us. We've also reached out to the WHO. They have not responded to us. And it's sad because it's so politically polarizing, and this is an issue that There needs to be a better standard of care, and this should not be a political issue at all.
It really should. I agree with you 100%. And I often say on this show that I cannot understand how we could get to this point with these issues before, so profound, so important, medically, psychologically, and societally. How could we get here without having significant hearings on these issues from the American Medical Association, from the Psychiatric Association, from the surgeons who are completing these surgeries, carrying out these surgeries? I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that in this day and age, when we all agree we should be following the science, that we're not even discussing the science because we don't have the science. We're not trying to create an understanding for the public about what's going on. I can only imagine how alone you had to feel at the point that you were going through this, because there's so little information. You have people carrying out surgeries, and the hospitals don't even want anyone to know they are in many cases. Your reaction to it all?
Yeah, I mean, it was, when you detransition, you get treated very differently. It's sad because I know so many detransitioners who have not been able to get the medical care they need. And that's the thing about detransitioner care is what's needed is not just reconstruction surgery or removal of implants, but it's also going to be all these side effects that we're dealing with from these highly experimental procedures.
Right. Well, Zachary, I want to ask you this. Tell us how you're going about the lawsuit. This has to be somewhat novel. There can't be many of these. Give us a sense of how much you're suing for and who is being sued. Doctors, the institutions, who all will be involved?
Well, in a certain way, you're right that this is novel, but in a certain way, it's not. This is really just a case about standard of care. And we have a long history in the country where we place a tremendous amount of trust in healthcare professionals. And that trust is that when, for any medical procedure, a patient comes in, there's an obligation to talk about risks. There's an obligation to talk about alternatives. And there's an obligation from our professionals to make sure that the patient gives informed consent. So at the end of the day, this is really a case about that. And the medical professionals that are involved here, extremely short meetings. There was not enough care given to the underlying issues and mental health issues. And there was a breach of that duty in this case.
Are there standards in the medical profession for carrying out these transition surgeries? Are there standards in the AMA, the surgical the surgeons who are doing this, and the psychiatrists? Is there a body of standards that should be met and followed? Because frankly, there's so little public knowledge here, it's staggering.
Well, as you can appreciate, because we're in pending litigation, there's only so much that we can talk about on the evidentiary issues in the case.
Okay,
but I will say generally, I will say generally, and I think it's generally speaking, these, again, it's not a novel issue when you have someone going in that is looking at a double mastectomy of healthy organs. There are certain things that the medical professionals need to do to talk about the risks, the alternatives, and to make sure that each individual is met in that.
Well, the standards that they are certainly are following right now are inadequate. I will say that outright, because right now the public has no idea in the world what's going on, and I don't believe the medical profession itself is taking sufficient responsibility for what they have embarked upon, and often they're doing so in the, if not outright shadows, in highly gray areas for medical professionals. Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Zachary, for being with us. And Camille, we wish you all the very best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you. Well, let's turn to let's go to MyPillow. When in doubt, go to MyPillow. MyPillow no longer has the support of their once big box stores or shopping channels the way they once did. They've been part of the cancel culture. Let's be straightforward about it. And they want now for you to know more about the products that they have created and pass savings directly onto you. A $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one problem, one product solution. Well, since then, with the help of their dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about them. And to get the word out, they're having a $25 extravaganza, 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. Their 6-pack towels, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, just $25. For the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size, just $25. The amazing offer won't last long, so order now. Just go to mypillow.com or call 800-977-9152 and use promo code Dobbs. That's promo code Dobbs. And check out my podcast, The Great America Show, available at loudobbs.com, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for being with us, and please join us here tomorrow. Thanks for everything. God bless you, and good night. Mike Lindell is next.